CISOs have a key role to play in preparing for the implementation of the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. But we can't do it alone. In order to ensure that our organisations are ready for May 2018, we need to work together with our colleagues. Today I'm meeting Sarah Taïeb, Data Protection Officer at Ipsen, to get some advice on the best ways for CISOs and DPOs to prepare for GDPR. Sarah, thanks so much for coming in to meet us today.
My pleasure.
Could you tell me what the steps are to preparing for GDPR and how you involve the CISO?
So the CISOs are involved from the very beginning. We meet very regularly to ensure that I review her policies, the IT policies, she reviews my employee policies, for example. It's privacy by design, as we say, but it's also security by design, because if you don't have security, you don't have privacy. The first step is security, to make sure that all the personal data are secured. So the main steps to compliance would be obviously the data mapping. If you don't know what you have, then how do you know what to protect if you don't know what you have? The drafting of policies. Even if you have them, you need to amend them to make sure they're compliant with the GDPR. And it's a type of self-auditing all the time, making sure that we keep abreast with the GDPR and the national legislations coming up.
Could you tell me how a CISO and a DPO work together to ensure compliance and accountability?
So that's very important. You can't get through the GDPR process if you don't have a teamwork with the CISO and the DPO. So we need to speak the same language at some point. That's not the case initially. So we need to teach each other what we do on a daily basis. And when we speak the same language, then we can influence others. Otherwise, it's too complicated to speak different voices.
Okay, yeah, and a similar question, how do the CISO and DPO work together to implement security measures?
In an ideal world, we would reach perfection and would have no risk whatsoever, and security measures would cover us perfectly. But unfortunately, perfection doesn't exist in this area, because it's always evolving. The state of the art will never be the same. What's important is to work together. The DPO and the CISO work together, so we each bring our expertise, and we ensure that I can tell the CISO what are the requirements of the GDPR, and on the other hand, she will tell me, so in practice, this is what we need to implement. So,
Sarah, in the case of a data breach that's likely to fall within the scope of the GDPR, what steps should you take with the CISO?
This case, and I hope it will never happen at Ipsen, but if there was an incident, a breach that would be likely to fall within the scope of the GDPR and affect data subjects. So here it will be more an assessment that we would conduct together to define first if we fall within the scope of the GDPR, and also if we must notify the data protection authority or not, if we must notify the data subjects or not. And if this happens, then the DPO will know who to notify, when to notify, but the CISO will help the DPO notify, because there's lots of information to include in the notification, such as the nature of the breach and the number of data subjects impacted. So that would be a collaboration work on this topic.
And how can the CISO and DPO work with HR and other departments to ensure that the requirements of GDPR in terms of handling data and individual compliance are explained and retained across the organisation?
Well, at Ipsen, we have this mindset. This is a one Ipsen mindset. This is relatively new, although it existed before, but it's now official. We all work closely to ensure, in this respect, compliance with the GDPR, but generally to protect our patients' personal data, for example. And so I go all over Europe to make sure that HR, IT, digital, all the key functions know how to process personal data and how to protect personal data, because we process very high sensitive personal data, and so we need to make sure that everyone is aware of their obligation.